welcome to another episode of the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. Today's episode is so much fun. My friend Julie Gillan joins the pod, y'all, and she is an absolute burst and ball of energy. We love having her on the pod today, and we have a great conversation, y'all, about so many things. One, you see my hat says ditch the frogs. We talk about what in the world does that mean and so much more with her brand and all the things she is up to, y'all. But we also touch on a lot of different topics of what kind of frogs should we be ditching? Is this just relationship advice? And so much more. It's such a good episode, and I cannot wait for y'all to hear it. If this is your first time on the pod, I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs, also founder of PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are. And we are so much more than just a podcast. We are an author of 2 books. We have merchandise. We have play dates, which are like mini little retreats we have. We also have speaking engagements, camps, clinics, and so much more. So if you don't know us, or if you're not following us, go ahead and check everything out on playwhereyourfeetare.com or at playwhereyourfeetare on social media. We would love for you to be a part of the family, just like Julie is today, y'all. But all through this podcast, we are just really emphasizing play where your feet are. And that means to do your best and be your best no matter what, no matter where, and to live a life full of living. Julie does just that, and she gets to represent Play Where Your Feet Are so well on the pod today. Y'all, it's going to be a great episode. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. So without further ado, let's get into this. Another episode of season 4 of the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. Roll music. This is the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast, and I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs. Julie, welcome to the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast.
Hello, Cameron. Thank you for having me. I am literally so excited.
Oh my goodness. We are honored. And I believe you teased before, this is actually the first podcast you've been on as a guest. Is that correct?
Ever in my entire life. Yes. This is crazy. Like, my friends were joking. They're like, Julie, you don't ask the questions. I was like, got it. Thank you.
Well,
yeah, I'm honored, Cameron. Thank you.
There's a hint already. So you actually are a podcast host yourself. Is that correct?
I am. I do have a hobby podcast. It's called J Chillin with Chillin Gillan. Fun fact, my last name is Gillan, Julie Gillan. So I was coined the term Chillin Gillan in 7th grade. And that's actually when I had my first Instagram, and that has been my handle since 7th grade. And that has carried me through to age 25, where we're at today. All this to say, Cam, yes, I do have a hobby podcast. I honestly don't advertise it. A lot of that was like imposter syndrome stuff, and I'm totally working through all that. But through the podcast is how you and I are here right now, because that's how Ditch the Frogs came to be. So yes. I do the podcast.
There we go. And you guys heard it already. If you're watching the podcast episodes, you see it already. We are wearing our matching Ditch the Frogs hat because Julie is in fact the founder, the owner, everything and more that is involved with Ditch the Frogs. So we're going to get into exactly what is this little company in this specific episode. But before we get to that, I want to tell you guys how Julie and I met. So Julie and I met at this amazing retreat called Life Retreat, which is hosted by Maya May Huff. And our listeners know we love Maya May. She's actually been on the pod before. She's a good friend of mine. And we are just honored and forever refreshed by her mission and what she does to so many females across, honestly, the world, I feel like.
Yeah.
But Julie and I were able to meet there, not only meet there, but room together at Life Retreat. We were in the same like bunk cabin thing, and we had the time of our lives, Julie. So much fun meeting you at Life Retreat.
It was. Do you remember Tooth Tunes?
Of course I remember Tooth Tunes.
Okay, I have wanted to text in that group chat so many times, but I got a new phone and it has deleted some of my group chats and I can't find it, but it pops into my head every night that I brush my teeth. Guys, if you're listening, like, what the heck are they talking about? Tooth Tunes is a toothbrush, and you brush your teeth to the length of one of your favorite songs. Boom, clean, shiny pearls. Yeah.
Just like that. And so we decided we would continue this childhood core memory at Life Retreat by playing our tooth tunes or singing our tooth tunes while brushing our teeth together in our little cabin bunk thing, and had the time of our lives. But it didn't just stop at camp. No, it continued after with people sending selfies, brushing their teeth, their tooth tunes, what they were listening to. And if that doesn't give you a perfect perspective of what Julie Gillan is, I don't know what will. Julie is full of joy and happiness and encouragement and so many more other amazing adjectives we can run off. But
Yeah.
all of that has encompassed this incredible woman who has created Ditch the Frogs. So, Julie, we've touched on a little bit so far, but what exactly is Ditch the Frogs and how in the world did this concept come about?
Heck yes. Okay. Well, thank you for the very generous intro, Cameron. You are so amazing. Honestly, you inspired me to do the thing. You probably don't even know that, but you know how we meet so many people in our life and they're all so intentional and we don't know that until later. Well, I remember meeting you and we were sitting next to each other and it was a talk on humility. And me and you, like, I forget exactly what we were talking about, but we both looked at each other. We were like, oh, like, I think we both, like, I was like, I really need to work on that. You were like, I really need to work on that. We were like, we were both like, we're really confident people. And like, we couldn't like relate exactly to the message, but we could in other ways. And I connected with you on that. And that's where I learned about play where your feet are. And then Maya had like any girls who had anything to sell at one of the nights. And then that's where I got your book. And I was like, this
Ew.
beautiful ray of sunshine who's such a godly woman and so young is doing all these things. I was like, I felt so like seen and heard, and like Cam had no idea that like things were going on with me that I wanted to do. So just thank you for paving the way here and for being who you are and starting playing where your feet are and the podcast and all that you do. So that's kind of how I'm here. But basically, so July, June, no, let's do June 2023. On my podcast, I ask people what their biggest life lesson they've learned in life is. And the guests that I have on are my friends, my family, just local people that I know and I'm very close with. And I had my high school friend on. Shout out Tori Kent. I was talking to her last night and I was like, Tori, I'm so shouting you out. So Tori and I had a conversation in her parents' basement last summer. And I literally was talking to her about dating, classic, like most of us here, most of the listeners, or whatever age you are, but I'm in my mid 20s, mid to young. I'm actually getting up there. I'm definitely like the mid, actually. It's so
So old. Julie, you're so old.
I am like literally. No, I'm just kidding. But we were talking about dating and being in the swamp. And Tori was like, I have literally been in the murkiest of waters, like very thick, deep mud. And I'm hopping through all of these lily pads to try to find my prince. And there's so many frogs, there's so many toads, there's so many poisonous frogs that are like giving me warts. You know, it's like all figurative. And then she was like, but Julie, I think that I have found my prince. So we were joking. We're like, ha ha ha, like so many frogs, prince. And then we kept it going like a little too far. And then we were like, oh my gosh, like you got to ditch the frog before you find your prince. And then we again like took it another level. We're like, let's make t-shirts. And I was like, yeah, let's make t-shirts. So that's the very simple idea of what Ditch the Frogs is. But there's another layer to it. When I signed myself up to go to Maya May's life retreat in, I think it was July 2023. Also, that was the first Christian women's retreat that I myself like freely and like willingly signed myself up to go to that. Like it wasn't like my parents suggesting it or my friends. Like I saw it on social media and I was like, I want to go to this. So, and it all has to do with my own personal faith journey with this brand. But basically, I go on this life retreat and we had, I don't know if you remember, Cam, but we had a talk on dating and the boys came in and the girls were like, oh my gosh, you are these cute like princes on these stages. It was so cool. So basically I was in a small group and I was telling the girls about my like little hobby podcast, and then I was telling them about the t-shirt, and it had nothing to do with Jesus, had nothing to do with Christianity at the time. And I was like, oh, I want to do like a comfort colors t-shirt that says find the prince, stitch the frogs. And they were like, wait, I think that you could make this faith-based, because Jesus is a true prince. And then like literally it was the coolest thing ever. Another girl who was in our small group was like, yeah, I think it's Isaiah 9:6 that says like this verse, which is I'll share it, but it's the verse that I use for the brand. And then I was like writing all of it down. I was like, oh, like the prince, Jesus, wait, he's our true prince, like our heavenly prince, our eternal prince. And then we were like, wait, but like let's find our earthly prince. And then the frog is like anything getting in the way of that. So basically, this life retreat, the girls were like breathing life into me and like ideas. And I remember, I can't make this up. I was talking to two boys at the time at life retreat, like very new, like they just like got put into my lap like a week before going to this trip. And one guy, I can't make this up. I was like trying to discern like who's like who am I more better suited with, like who's like the prince here. Okay. I told the one guy, he was asking me all these questions about life retreat, like how's it going? He was so interested in like my faith and like this journey. And then the other guy, guys, I can't make this up. God is so funny. He literally texts me, I just got a tattoo. And I'm like, oh, okay, like what is it?
If you
It
tell me
was
it's
a
a frog,
frog. Yes. Yeah, guys,
no way.
it was a frog. I hope he never hears this. I'm so sorry. I hope you love your tattoo, sir. But anyway, literally, it was a frog sitting on a mushroom playing a banjo. And I was like, wait, like, he has no clue about my like frog prince journey right now.
If that's not the clearest sign from God you could ever get, girl.
Yeah, and the other guy was so encouraging. I even told him about the t-shirt, and I sent him like I like snuck away to go talk to him and do an audio message. I'm such an audio message girly, as you know, Cam. And I was like, la 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 la. I want to do this t-shirt. He's like, yeah, do it. And I'm like, hey, let's go. So anyway, guys, long story short, that's how this came to be. But there was a ton of time in between July 2023 and where we are right now in December 2024. But that's how the ideas were going. I flew on a plane home. I was talking to my roommate, who's my best friend, and I was like, hey, I want to do this t-shirt. I want to do this brand. And she was like, oh, you should use our mutual friend, Austin from Penn State. I went to Penn State, everyone. If we have any Penn Staters. Who has like a side business and does like a lot of like supplies for companies, small businesses, sports teams, stuff like that. And she was like, get hooked with him. He's also Christian, love that. Get hooked with him, tell him your idea. So I did. I told him my idea. I was like, I want to do this and this and this. He was like, that's ugly. Absolutely not. You're going to do this, and we're going to make it more like trendy Christian streetwear. And I was like, okay. So that's how I like got my shirts. And I got my first shirt in September of 2023. And I was moving at the time. I had so much going on. I moved out of my parents for the first time. I moved into a rental home with my two roommates where I'm at right now in Philadelphia. Shout out any Philadelphians, East Coast, Northeasterns up here. But basically I was like too shy to tell anyone about this brand. I was even shy to tell people about my like radical faith transformation that has been occurring with me as well throughout all of 2023. A lot of people know close to me that I have like a radical faith, but I wouldn't say that I'm broadcasting as much as I am now, as much as the confidence that I have now, type thing. So I was wrestling with that. And then I got broken up with the day after Christmas last year. And then I posted the shirt on Etsy that same day. It was like the fire I needed to be like, okay, frog, let's go, Prince. Jesus, we're all in. Click. So then like I did that, but I still didn't tell anyone. And then Easter this year, literally, God is in all the details. My other best friend gets me my first like trucker hat situation. Okay, you can't really see it because I blurred my background, but it was just like a custom one on Etsy from Autos, and it said Ditch the Frogs on it. And I have been very dormant with the brand. Like I had the t-shirt on Etsy, but I didn't do anything with it. There wasn't even Instagram. No one knew about it. And then my best friend, who's so encouraging, got me this out of the blue. Like we weren't even talking about Ditch the Frogs, and she just got me this hat for my birthday in March. And it was Easter week. It was crazy. Like it was literally Easter week. My faith was increasing to something I can't even explain other than the Holy Spirit. Like literally in my body, like on fire. Like guys, I didn't sleep the whole week. I was literally in my phone writing down all these notes and like journaling all these things and like reading Bible verses. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like just praying like on my hands and knees at church on Easter. And I was like, yes, Lord. Like, okay, you want me to do this. Okay, with the trucker hat, we're gonna do this. Oh, you truly want me to do this? Like, okay, I hear you, I hear you. Like, let's go. Truly, I will never forget like that conversation with God. And it was like encompassing my entire body. And it was Easter. And I was just like, you're so cool. God, like you're literally so cool. But okay, so that's when I got the fire under my butt to go do this. However, I work full time in corporate America. I was struggling at the time with the situationship that I was in and discerning all of those feelings. And there was also a death involved there with my situationship's mother, which caused like so much emotional um turmoil and like a lot of deep reflection and introspection and like reflection on what the heck I'm going to do in life. So there's a lot of personal things happening with me at this time, but it also still gave me the fire to like create an Instagram. And then from the Instagram, it trickled into a website, getting it on Etsy, TikTok, Instagram. Now this podcast. What Ditch the Frogs means is it's a play on The Princess and the Frog, that childhood story that we're all familiar with, that says that sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. This has been my journey. Unfortunately, it's a universal journey. Some people are the lucky few that just kiss their first frog and like that's their person. God bless you. You're amazing. It hasn't been my journey. It hasn't been a lot of other people's journey. So that's the first meaning of the brand. But it's actually a layer deeper in the way that this is truly a Christian based brand based off of Isaiah 9:6, which the verse says, "For unto you a child will be born, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." So the t-shirts that I sell say, "Find the Prince." The Prince is all capitalized. I have a Bible verse on the side that says Isaiah 9:6. The back of the shirt says "Ditch the Frogs." And what the actual message is we're truly trying to find the true Prince, which is Jesus, that Prince of Peace. And the frog is anything getting in the way of our relationship with Jesus and who he has called us to be. So,
I love it. That's so good. And also, she's gonna emphasize this too, and the t-shirts and everything. But they're also really cool t-shirts and hats. Like it looks good too, and the bracelets and everything.
thank you, Cam. I'm trying to go for like modern Christian streetwear. It really wasn't my original idea, but God has literally quite literally put the right people in my path to like reconstruct what I was doing. But I feel like that can give a lot of you hope. If you have an idea and you like don't know if it's good or not, go to a trusted person. They will refine it and get it where it needs to go in the business process side of things. But yeah, so the t-shirt's 95% cotton, 5% spandex. So it's really thick. It's kind of like essentials, but better and cheaper. Uh, shameless plug there. And then yeah, the trucker hats are black and black embroidery. I really want it to be minimalistic. Why the brand is called Ditch the Frogs and not Find the Prince also is because it's alluring. It's like, what the heck does Ditch the Frogs mean? It's not so like in your face Christian brand. It's very subtle. And I also, that's what I want my brand to be, that it's like a conversation starter. I'll get texts sometimes from my friends and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this guy at the coffee shop just asked me what does Ditch the Frogs mean. And it's like, boom, little invitation to talk. It's very intentionally subtle.
I love how you talk about the process of it because I mean we're hitting a couple different angles of this episode. You know, we're gonna be touching on kind of the entrepreneurial side of things, that business startup type of deal, but then also we're talking about the faith side of things and what this actually means and what frogs that we have
Yeah.
to ditch and what we're growing through and your faith journey through all of this as well. But talking about the process a little bit, it takes time, and it was a year or so that you kind of sat on this a little bit, and it
Yeah.
took other people being involved to push you in this. And so throughout
Yeah.
this kind of year launch you've been going through, you're really ramping up a lot of incredible, by the way, social content, girl is popping off with all her great content. I am obsessed with everything. And if I get engaged one day, should the day come, I definitely love all the hats, the found the prints, all the things, all the things. If you don't know what we're talking about, you just have to go check out the Insta because you will then have FOMO and order everything that Julie is doing. But to make a point here is that I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of this business owner side of things first, and then we'll get a little deeper into the faith conversation. But talk
Okay.
about a little bit of like the easiest parts of launching this and then some of the hardest parts of launching.
Absolutely. So the easiest parts would for me during this was all of the immediate support that I got with my friends and family. I truly didn't know how that was going to go. Um, my family, we've all been raised in the faith, but I'm like now coming out as like, yeah, I want to do this brand and stuff. And they're like, okay, like, and they're so supportive of it. So honestly, telling my closest friends and family that I want to do this was like the easiest part, and getting their support gave me the momentum to go forward. So I kind of had like the momentum, and that was easiest. The hardest part was figuring out how to do it all logistically. And honestly, I did most of it on my own. And I like now that I'm in December, I look back at this year, it truly started in March, like all the groundwork. I blinked. Like I feel like I blinked and I'm like, what just happened? I was going to work at my full-time job. I'm a manager of 20 people in corporate America at my full-time job. And then I would like go home and literally work on this every single night for like 4 to 5 hours. And now I'm like, wait, like, did I do that? And I was like all just doing it, researching on my own. I built the website. I did like the Instagram. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, disclaimer, guys, if you have a dream in your heart and you don't know how the heck you're gonna do it, or you don't have the resources to do it, I'm me too. Like, I also don't know what I'm doing. It might seem like it. It might seem like it's all polished and put together. And like, thank you for the shout out with the content and like my website and stuff, but it's like, guys, I don't. So I'm just figuring out as I go. But
Well, and not to interrupt you, but that's also the whole point of playing where your feet are. Like none of us know what we're doing at all. No one. Like I think as a, every single year I get older, and I'm only 25, turning 26 in February. By the time this launches, I might be 26. So old. I know, guys, so old. But every single year into adulting more and more, I just realized that, oh, none of us know what we're doing ever. Like no one. No, like
amen.
my parents are still figuring it out. My bosses are still figuring it out. Like we're all just trying to do our best. And
Yeah.
we're all taking it, this is all of our first time at life. No one is here for the second time or more than that. And so we're all just figuring it out. And the same thing goes as the business owner side of things. And I think
Yeah.
that's the beauty of playing where your feet are. It's, hey, I have no idea how to start a website, but I can Google how to do that. I can look up on YouTube. I can get my friend who takes content to take a few photos of me and my friends at our house and we can post it on social. Like you just literally do what you have or do what you can with the resources you have, with the finances you have, no
Yeah.
matter how many that is or not, whether it is a budget of $0 or 10,000, everything in
Yeah.
between, you just figure it out. So, Julie, we are all figuring it out. And that's why we love the fact that you're a perfect example of playing where your feet are, and for so many other reasons that we'll continue to get through. But go ahead and keep continuing. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I love that point that you made.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but I also want to touch on that with like the resource part of it and like logistically how I built this business. So I was very fortunate where I got to live at home for 2 years post college. So I graduated Penn State May of 2021. I lived at home. I got my full-time job, and then I saved money. I moved out, and then I have funded this brand like all myself. Like it's just the money that I have saved. Um, I'm like, wait, what is going on? Like, I'm just like, now that I'm like, it has been a couple months, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. So, and you don't need much. Like, you can start with a little mustard seed, literally, guys. And like you said, you just use the resources you have. Like, God intentionally put all of these people in my life in my past that now I'm literally like, God, I get what you did there. I like see why he's in my life. That guy literally is how I have this brand. And like that girl is how I have like the photo shoot. And that's how I have this. And all my friends are so supportive. Like it's also intentional. So if you just like kind of wake up and play where your feet are and see the details, God's already like orchestrated it for you. You literally just have to say yes. say yes. Right? Like literally, yes, God, he'll figure out the rest. I know it's so cliche, and you can like sit here driving your car right now, listening to this podcast, like in the gym, and you're like, okay, like just say yes. No, actually, just say yes. It'll all get worked out, I promise. But you have to have the drive and the motivation, and that comes from you and God and saying yes to his plan, and then he's gonna figure it out. Also, if it flaps, like, okay, it could be something else. It's still a learning lesson. It's still not gonna be in vain. God will use it for good, for sure. But I will say, Cam, that the least favorite part, logistically and business wise, is my keeping my book. I hate it. I literally can't stand it. If any of you are like accounting people and like want to be like my intern or something, guys, I we can talk. I hate doing it. I'm on the Excel sheet and I'm like, oh no, like I don't like this. So I'm learning, like being a business owner, you have to, and you know this, you have to do everything and all the behind the scenes admin work that no one sees, and it's hours. And it's just like not it all the time. But the other stuff is super fun, like content creation, videos, and hearing people's stories and how they relate to the brand is so fulfilling. So it's worth it.
It all makes it worth it in the end. And it's so true. I mean, you start out as a one-man band, and like she said, that's what she's got. She's playing where her feet are right now. And Julie, one day it could be you could have 20 employees under you in this business, and you're not even in corporate America anymore. Like you have no idea what God will do with this. And
And
it's just by your yes. And so, of course, everything that you're doing is under the title of Ditch the Frogs, and it's Ditch the
yeah.
Frogs, Find the Prince. But I love that you really emphasize too, because I remember even we were talking about like ambassadors and things, and I'm like, oh, but this person like isn't really like relationship based or whatever. And you're like, no, 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 no. Like it's not just a dating thing. Like, yeah, sure, 100%. That's a hot topic, but it's more than that. Like we have other frogs to ditch to still point us to our prince, which is Jesus Christ in every aspect, not just looking for your spouse, but looking for joy, looking for peace, satisfaction, whatever it might be. And we have some frogs in the way in our swamps that we're in that we need
Mhm.
to ditch. And so I want to ask you, because you've touched in a little bit of kind of like this radical faith that you have and a little bit of your journey and how it's grown and different things there. And so I want to ask you, what frogs have you been ditching and how have they impacted you in this journey?
How much time do we have, Kim?
Girl, we got all day.
Um, okay, yes. I actually just did ditch a relationship frog in October. So this is very live time right now. I was, without getting too much into it, I was in a year and a half situationship with a lot of deep dark things going on there, including death. And just saw grieving and all that process. And long story short, it didn't work out. But also, I want to touch on this. The frog, if it's a relationship person, doesn't always have to be negative. It might just not be your prince and your match. So he is a wonderful person. It just wasn't my match. And that's okay. That's the relationship frog that I just got out of. If we're looking at non dating frogs, the non dating frogs, what I think they can be is an addiction, anything that's not good for you, like a sin that you can't shake, a toxic friendship, a job that's sucking the life and joy out of you, scrolling too much on Instagram, sorry to say it, guys. Like not getting enough sleep, not taking care of yourself. Like those are all frogs in our life. The frog that I'm ditching right now is saying yes to too many things. Like I almost need to reorder my life right now. So the frog that I need to ditch is disorganization of priorities right now.
Julie, you know what's crazy is if I pull up my notes right now and go into my 2025 words and goals, you will find almost word for word very similar things.
I'm not shocked
And
because
look at God.
I'm just not shocked at all. And that's great that we're both so self-aware, Kim, that we need to work on it.
Yes, yes. It's so true. And I literally have just like work on your priorities. I was praying over this. Guys, once again, we've said it already. We're recording this in December. You can see my lovely Christmas tree up behind me. So we are currently heading into the year as we are recording this. And same thing. I've been praying so much over kind of just what 2025 will be for me. And very similar, like my words that I'm praying over haven't fully decided yet, but are very much like discipline,
Mm.
blessing in a sense. And rhythms is one thing that I really want to get in, like, locked in this year. I have good rhythms, but I want them to be extremely intentional and extremely focused, and me to be very disciplined to execute them. And so, girl, same thing here. Same thing here. We are working to get more sleep. We are working to do a couple more things, work on our priorities, stop scrolling as much. I'm currently on a 1 month fast that started today off of social media. And so it's so important to ditch the frogs. And maybe it's like you said, even in the relationship, but even in all areas, maybe the frog is a frog temporarily. There can be
Absolutely.
things that can be good things that turn bad, but there are also things that can be good things that turn to God things. It can go both ways. And so whether that is a person, whether that is a resource like social media can be an extremely incredible tool, or
Mhm.
it can be very toxic. And it's how we treat it. It's the priority we have around it. It's the perspective. It's what level it places in our own lives and what we do with it. And so cool. I love that you're ditching those frogs, and super excited to see kind of what comes out of that. That's amazing, amazing. And I've seen so much of just, you talk about how you've always had this faith, but now it's just like even more. You're like, okay, let me run through a brick wall. Like, I'm going to do this brand. I'm going to do all this. And I even see it from social media. I've seen this shift over the years, and I've seen just like how bold you're becoming with this brand and how excited you are about it, and seeing the community you're gathering around it is so beautiful to watch. And so you're impacting a ton of people with Ditch the Frogs. I'm wearing it. People are wearing it all over the country, but people are also ditching frogs because of you and this mission, which is the mission of all of it in the first place. And so, as you're impacting others, how do you think that this business, this process, this faith journey has also impacted yourself? How have you been impacted?
It's so funny. I appreciate you saying all those things that other people have been impacted. I think I needed this brand more than like other people need this brand. And that's what God does, right? Play with your feet are like you needed that brand more than everybody else needs that brand. And that like sanctifies you, like literally. And it's so funny. I've been in many, many relationships in my life, which is also how this brand came to be. It's so personal. The brand is so personal, guys. I was in like a very, very, very toxic relationship when I was 21, and that quite literally has changed my life and my perspective on everything for the better. It was the kind of relationship where I thought like, oh, I couldn't be happy with him and I couldn't be happy without him. Lie from the enemy, my sweet sisters. Lie. And I just wish that I had this brand then to be like, oh, what a frog. We're done here. But I didn't. And literally now I see God's hand and how he has restored the ashes and darkness of my life and quite literally is making like rainbows and sunshine and flowers out of it. But all this to say, this brand has impacted my life in calling me higher. It literally calls me out. If I am having a brand that I'm putting my name attached to it, and I'm saying that I'm a Christian and I follow Jesus and I follow the commandments and I follow what the church says and everything, like, well, then I have to be accountable for that. I can't be dating these frogs and I can't be doing this and dabbling that and saying that I'm this. Like, it literally, guys, has sanctified me and literally, like, been remolding me. And honestly, Cam, the most difficult thing about launching this brand spiritually was a spiritual battle that I quite literally went through boot camp in order to like launch it. So yeah, now you're like, oh, I can see you like running through a brick wall. Cool, but that didn't happen without like a year and a half of massively dark spiritual battle refinement thoughts that I can't even like put into words eloquently, honestly. But I know that you know what I'm talking about, Cam. The minute that you say yes to the Lord, there's going to be all the euphoric feelings. There's also going to be the enemy in your literal body saying absolutely not. And this is why. And it's, you literally have to overcome the darkness. So that's been the most difficult part of it, but it's also been the most impactful part of it is like I fully feel like totally sold out for Jesus. Like I feel like before I was still rocky in certain things that I didn't want to ditch. Quite literally. Like I didn't want to ditch certain things of the world that I was like, no, like that's fine. I know, I know the Bible says this, but like, no, no, now I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I have to be totally in love with the prince who's Jesus. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. And I think I go back to that run through the brick wall statement. And you're like, yeah, Cam, you see me doing that now, but like, girl, I had to go through some stuff. And I think of that
Yeah.
where it's almost like, well, yeah, because if you're gonna run through a brick wall, you have to be strong. You can't run through a brick wall weak. Like, no,
Mhm.
you have to gain some strength for that. And yes, maybe it's God going with you and he's pushing the wall down in front of you and he's breaking down the wall, but maybe he's empowering you to do that work yourself. And so you have to build that strength before, and you've done that work. You've done that work. You're doing it now. You're able to push forward, and you have people coming with you. You have the Lord going with you. You have the Lord going before you. So the path is already cleared, and you're stepping in that. And like you said at the beginning, you are saying yes, yes, and amen, continuing to go through it. And it's funny because this all actually reminds me of I went to VooCon, which is kind of like the conference convention of Voo Church in Miami, and that's the church that I go to now. But it's funny because my journey there, and I'll try to say this very much long story, quite short. But my journey going to Voo was kind of all of a sudden type of journey in a sense, but it was also building for a while at the same time because that's kind of how God works. He works behind the scenes 24/7, but we see it all of a sudden. And so I
Right.
made this switch to Voo Church this year at the beginning of the year in 2024, if this is in 2025. So 2024, I made the switch to Voo. And it's funny because kind of very quickly, I was kind of called up by people, not just by God, but by people like in different leadership positions of the church and just different ways I could kind of step up and help out and volunteer and whatever it might be. And one of those was to actually be in the promo videos for VU 2025 conference or convention. And so VUCon 2025, we recorded before VUCon 2024 so we could promote it at 2024. And so, I go with my friends, we do this thing. It's super cool, super high level production, like an honor to be chosen, an honor to be there. But mind you, we're with I don't know, 50 people going in and out throughout the day of this video, like all doing different parts, whatever it might be. And we finish it super cool, fun. Thank you guys so much. Honored. Move on. Months go by, and VUCon 2024 comes. And at this point, I'm now going to the church really solidly plugged in, maybe so, for about 3 months at this point. I'd been there like 6 months, kind of got more involved about 3 months in, really committed, stopped double dipping between my former church to this church. And we get to VUCon 2024, and all of a sudden, they're playing all the promos for VUCon the next year. And I had no idea how this would be edited. I had no idea how they'd promote it. Did not have any inclination of anything at all besides we filmed with a ton of people. Little did I know, I was going to be the poster child for VUCon 2025. And in the entire University of Miami basketball arena, my face would be plastered on every single seat in the arena with VUCon 2025 dying to be different. And I'm like, oh, okay. And now let me be clear. So this first happens, and we are immediately making jokes, having fun. Like, this is so cool, all this stuff. Like, oh my gosh. And, comments from like, she's barely even gone here and she's the poster child, to like people seeing me, my friends seeing me, to be clear, not random people, but my friends seeing me and be like, oh my gosh, it's the girl in the poster, it's the girl in the promo. And like, having fun with it. And it was super fun for a couple of days, but not gonna lie, when conference ended or convention ended, I kind of paused and I was like, I almost have like an uneasiness because this is a burden to carry. Because if my face is going to be the face of VUCon 2025, you better believe I need to be locked in. You better believe I need to know the values of the church. You better believe I need to be serving. I don't need to just be serving. I need to be leading in the church. I need to be fully knowing and believing and representing what the church is representing and their own values. And so that was almost like the biggest call and conviction. Not that I was wilding out or anything, but I just was almost just kind of riding the waves. And I felt like that was God being like, Oh no, you're not doing that, hun. No, I'm not giving you time to get settled. You're not getting time to get comfortable in this new position. No, you're going because I've called you to go and you're not just going to sit there. You're going to go. And so all of a sudden I'm pushed into all of this and called into all of this and fired up into all of this. And now I look back and it's December and it's been almost 6 months since that moment. And I am now leading a team at VU. I've been asked to lead a small group. I am a building block in a small group. I am plugged in on a location. I am doing this and that and the other. And it's not to say, faith should be all about what you're doing, though faith without works is dead. But, not to say it should be a checklist of you have to do this and that and the other, but it was a calling, like you said. It was the fact that you're wearing a label on you and you need to represent that label. We're not here to be hypocrites. We're here to represent it. Now, we're not going to be perfect, but we are called to a high standard to represent this well. And we, every single day, whether you're wearing a hat that says ditch the frogs or a shirt that says play where your feet are or not, you are made in the image of God. So every day you're walking out in the image of God, representing God, and you have to represent him well. And if you feel pressure by me saying that statement, then good. You should. It is a burden to carry. Now, it's not a burden to carry that you should feel scared about. Maybe so, to the extent that it's the fear of God, but it's a burden that you should be fired up. It's like knowing, hey, I'm playing at the University of Miami and my coach is a little scary, but he's a little scary because I want to please him. I want to work hard. I don't want to be benched. Like, I've been given a scholarship to play at the University of Miami. I want to take advantage. I don't want to take up space. I want to play where my feet are. I want to know that, hey, this is an incredible opportunity. I'm going to run with it. And that's the whole thing with this thing we call life. We are given breath every day, and I don't want to waste it. This is a calling. Sure, it's a burden, but I'm going to run with it because how exciting can the blessing be on the other side of the burden? And that's what we are working to do by playing where our feet are and ditching the frogs in the meantime, Julie. So I'm fired up by you coming on the pod today. I am so excited. And so, I want to pause there because I know I spoke for a little bit there. But any reflection points you have on that? Any ways you want to go from there?
I just want to emphasize everything that you said 100 times. Like literally in my head, I was like a bobblehead the whole time. I was like, Like I was like, yes, yes, amen, burden. Okay. It is like when you give your yes and you are like, okay, I'm going to represent the kingdom, you're working for God. That's your employer. So, like, yeah, and we're not perfect. We're going to mess up, right? Like, we will, but like, Jesus died on the cross for our sins. Like, he knows that. But it doesn't give you the excuse to like be lazy and like go conform to your old ways. And when you said that they chose you to be the poster face, like, it's because you gave your yes to that video promo that you were doing. And then God was like, all right, she said yes, here I go. Like, I'm not messing around. He doesn't mess around. Like, if you give him, he's a gentleman. God won't like reorchestrate your life if you're not asking him to. And like, if you are like, yes, come into my heart, mind, body, and soul, and like make the necessary changes you need to do for your will, okay, watch out. And it is a higher calling. And like, you are that leader. You have to go forth and be a leader in the church that like you didn't necessarily sign up to be, but you actually did. So it's like it's super convicting. Like even at my corporate job, like I manage people. So when they're talking to me, and if I am distracted or not present, I'm not playing where my feet are exactly in that moment, I feel so convicted. And I feel more convicted having this brand than when I did prior. So like you were saying, like how has it impacted me? It's literally convicted me like so much in the best way though. And it's also not made me lower my standard, ladies, in dating. Like I mentioned, like I've had like 5 different boyfriends. They've all been like short relationships now that I look at it from age 25. And if I didn't have this brand right now, like I don't know who my future prince is. I haven't met him yet, or maybe I have, I just don't know it. But I don't know who I would have in the future like end up with if I didn't have this brand right now. Like it's all so intentional what God's doing in all of our lives at the perfect timing that he needs it to be at. So it's also just made me never settle relationship wise. And I have research to back all of it up.
Look, I've done the math, guys. I've done the math.
I've done the math. Like any girly listening to this, if you need like relationship advice or like you're kind of discerning if your guy's a frog or a prince, I would be so happy to talk to you. That's also what I want to do with this brand moving forward is I would love to have a like hotline podcast where people can like call in voicemails or text in and like tell crazy relationship stuff in the Christian world and be like, is this a frog or a prince? Or like maybe you're new to faith. That's also another thing I want to do with this brand is like I want to get the girl who's like him, it's so easy to talk to you because your heart is on fire for the Lord and you're like a freaking superwoman. But there's so many people I think that this brand could reach just by like the name and the universal message of you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince that can like subtly call them higher and start questioning like their relationships that they can actually have such a deeper meaning in them if they put Christ as the third person in that relationship type thing. So I think that I can like get people in the door that way. Um, if you don't have a relationship with God and maybe you're in a relationship that's super subpar and you don't know that you're literally the princess of this earth and you are like the jewels of the kingdom. Like you don't know your worth. Like I think I can help people in that way too.
And I have to touch on that point that you need to do this little podcast idea. You need to look, I'm already thinking it for you. What you said it yourself. You kind of have like local friends, family, all the people on your podcast. You need to post on your Instagram or text your friends and tell them to send you audio messages. You're an audio message girl already. Say,
So
send me audio messages of questions of what is a frog? What is a prince? Discerning different areas, whether it's dating or not. Like we said, you could be talking about, hey, I'm a workaholic, but what's the balance of working hard and getting rest? Or maybe it's, okay, what if this guy does this? Is this a situationship? Is it bad? Is this a frog? Is this a prince? You could also post on Instagram and have people send you audio messages on Instagram so they don't even have to text it to you. Girl, you could screen record those, you could save the audio, put them in your podcast, and you talk about them on your pod. So I'm telling you now, with my finger in your face, you're doing this on the pod.
all right. Yes, Cam. Yes, I'm doing it. Okay, let's go.
We
No,
have it recorded, so you are
yeah.
being held accountable by the Play Where Your Feet Are podcast.
Okay. Well, listeners, if you have any, DM me, ditch the frog.
Yes.
Okay, let's go. Let's get it started. You guys can be my guinea pigs here.
Let's go. Wait, I actually love that. Okay, well, talking about the future for you then, we are going to be doing this on your pod. So much more to come with your life. And so I just want to ask kind of like, what do you hope to gain from all this? What are you looking for in the future? Whether it's very like step A, B, C of business, or whether it's more like spiritual, emotional, like impact. What do you hope to gain from all this?
Such a good question. And I think I'm kind of refining that answer every day. Like Cam and I mentioned, like we're kind of all figuring it out. I did the leap of faith. I got tangible products. And basically there's a lot of different directions I want to take this, but right now in the present, I sell t-shirts, they're men's sizing, and I think that both women and men can wear it. Like my design for the guy is like a going out shirt. Like it's a nice quality. It looks so good on them because it is a dude shirt. And then for the women, it's like the oversized, like lounging in the house, going to the gym, beach cover up, going to bed, like wear it with biker shorts, like be cute type thing. But I also have a bridal line, bachelorette line that I'm trying to really tap into. I would love to jazz up the bridal line and like we are the brides of Christ, you know? So it all ties in here. But the bridal shirt I have, and I haven't like had a photo shoot for it, just some behind the scenes guys of business stuff. Like I haven't had a photo shoot of it. I literally have a really low quality, like front and back picture of it. And I'm like, all right, we got to put this on Etsy. Like it's not what I want it to be, but you have to start somewhere. So I'm like, boom, I put that listing up like yesterday. But all this to say, it's a shirt that says found the prince, ditched the frogs, ED, and it's in gold because it's royalty. We are royalty. And then the bridal hat is white and it says found the prince. And I want to do a whole bachelorette line situation with that. So that's like business wise. And the bachelorette business is freaking booming. And I'm hoping that I can actually start to get a profit through there. And then through there, if God blesses me with this business and wants it to go somewhere, I have so many ideas. And with those ideas, which I can already start doing now is the podcast where people call in, start like a Q&A, literally a Q&A. And Kim, I can have you on and like be like, hey, what do you think here? You
I'm
know,
down.
Okay, I would love to have guests come on it and like let's talk about it. Kind of like a Christian like call her daddy, but like for dating. And yeah, or non-dating stuff too. But anyway, yeah. So I want to do that. I also want to do this is a hot take team out here. Online dating is huge, right? Like so many people have asked me, "Oh, is it a dating app? Is that what Ditch the Frogs is?" It's not right now. I'm not closed off the idea because I have some ideas where I'm like, "Oh, they could like swipe through the lily pads and like swipe left on the frogs and right on the princes." Like I have a lot of ideas, but there are Christian dating apps out there. But there's not a lot of in-person single events. My dream, guys, if I like could get the capital to do so, would be to host as many not weird in-person single dating events in various cities. I kind of subtly do that here. I'm such a hoster. I love throwing parties. And my roommates and I joke, we're having a Christmas party coming up, and we're like, it's actually a disguised singles party. Like we're matchmakers. I would love to do like matchmaking. Like honestly, I think one of my gifts from the Holy Spirit is like networking and connecting with people. And guys, I have set up right now two couples. They're not married yet. So like I don't know the exact success, right? But they're totally enjoying dating right now. And like they met at one of my parties. So I'm like a subtle little matchmaker. Like literally, if you were to look at my phone, I am like voice memoing like girls and guys. I'm like, what about this girl? Blah, 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 blah. Like, what about this? Like, I truly love it. I love it. So I want to do like matchmaking stuff, but all this to say, I'm kind of rambling here. Podcast is something tangible I will be doing. Diving into the bachelorette market, I will absolutely be doing. And then also another idea could be like a Bible study. For people on how to like date better. I truly, truly, truly believe if we are dating better, we're marrying better, we're having better families, and we will in turn have a better world. It's just like it's not rocket science out here. We just have to reorchestrate how we're doing things because the modern dating world is so crazy. Like I'm totally trying to ditch toxic hookup culture. If you guys notice, like the abbreviation of the brand and like Cameron, you can edit this out if you want, but the abbreviation of the brand is not by accident. Like Ditch the Frogs is it stands like if you just look at the letters, it's DTF. I want to be the exact opposite of what culture says DTF is. Literally, I'm like the other brand that's like, no. And they're like, oh, that's weird. It says that. Okay, we'll read into it because it's the exact opposite of that.
You know,
Hot.
that's a little spicy, controversial hot take comment, but I'm gonna leave it in because I love it. I love it. I think it's so cool. You're being so intentional behind it, and you're playing where your feet are. And I think there's maybe you could say a fine line of balance, but at the same time, you have to go to where the people are. Like Jesus ate with the sinners. That
A
was probably frowned upon. It was frowned upon. It says in the Bible. But the fact that again, you're like, okay, but I'm not here to save the people that are healthy. I'm here to save the people that are sick. So I'm gotta get their attention somehow. And granted, you're not stepping into sin. You're doing the exact opposite. And so I love it. I think you're being so intentional. I actually see a lot of our brands honestly aligning in different ways with you're doing singles events and I'm doing mini retreats and play dates, what we call them. And so, we have that, we have the merch, we have the podcast. And so I just think it's so cool how we're both kind of following this call on our life, following our own story, doing what we need for ourselves, and then just gathering people along to do it with us, all with a unified mission to ultimately glorify God and make this world a better place, but doing so in different ways, whether it is being intentional in the seasons and positions we're in, whether it is ditching the frogs and finding your spouse. And like you said, it's so true. Like if you are going to date, if you are going to marry, if that is in the cards for you, then yes, like the person you marry is going to be one of the most important decisions of your life. And like you said, you meet your spouse, that's your ministry partner. It's not just your spouse. And so I'd almost add that step into it. It's like, yeah, okay, if you're dating better, you're marrying better, your ministry together is better, then your families are better, then the world is better. It's so powerful and I love it. And you really are. I said it already, but you're a great example of playing where your feet are. And it's from the minute you started to where you're at to the vision you have to being intentional. We've said that word so many times. And just to run with this and to know that, hey, I'm also going to have a lot of joy. I'm going to play with this. I'm going to have fun with this. And you're doing it. You see it by your big smile throughout the entire podcast. It's bleeding through, and we love it, Julie. So we've said it so many times already, mixing it into the conversation. But what does play where your feet are mean to you?
Absolutely. Okay. Like I was saying before, our friend that, well, you met my friend, Carolyn, we always text it to each other. Like when we're doing our life updates, I'm like, oh, we're like, we just need to play where our feet are. Like, it's fine. Like, we're called to holiness in the exact moment that we are living and breathing. And so many of us go through life where we're like, okay, when I get this job, when I meet the person that I'm supposed to marry, when I am not sick, when I am not this. Like we do all these whens and what ifs, and we're like, then my life is good. Playing where your feet are to me is literally being present. Like, what am I doing right now? It's Monday night and I'm having a conversation with you. Well, that means that my phone needs to be off and silenced, and the distractions that are all up here and they're still going to be here. I'm like done right now. I'm ditching that. I'm fully present with you because that's where I'm called to be in the moment. Playing where your feet are to me means not detesting my current state or season of life. And I've had a lot of dark seasons. A lot of people look at me and they're like, "Oh, Julie's always like happy. She's always joyful. She's always positive." That's not true. Yes, that's my temperament. I don't know if you know like the 4 temperaments. I'm like a sanguine, like to a T. That is my natural temperament. But internally, like I might be going through a storm that like you don't know anything about. For example, when I was doing this brand, it was also one of the darkest years of my life because I was witnessing someone that I really cared about go through grief with the uncertainty of our relationship status. And it was disgusting. Like the whole thing was so dark and heavy. I now am starting to see some of the reasons why God put me through that season, even with this brand. But all this to say, I didn't want to be where my feet were at all, actually, this year. Like, I was so eager to not be there. I was like, God, I hate this season. And like, hate's a strong word. It is not recommended to use that word in the Christian world, but I didn't like it. I literally was like, when you get me out of this season, like, when you get me out of the pain that I am feeling and the uncertainty of my love life that you know that I care so much about, Lord. Like, what are you doing? Why did you have her die? Like, all these things. But, like, I should have just reframed myself and been like, I am suffering right now. You will get me through, and I have to play and fully go through it. But honestly, I think that I did it the most that I could have. Like, okay, this is gonna sound so weird, but if I didn't have your brand and like me going through my faith journey to be strong right now, I don't think I would have like gotten out of this season happy at all. So like your brand was always subconsciously in my brain of like, Julie, the Lord is placing you in this really dark, confusing time right now. There will be fruit, keep going. And, like, literally it's only by the grace of God that, like, I'm still here and, like, the relationship ended, but there's still joy for both people and, like, we're both going to be good. But I don't know. I just basically all this to say the brand Play Where Your Feet Are is literally what Jesus is calling to. Jesus is calling us to in the present moment, and we have to answer the call. Like, we're humans, we're always gonna wanna be somewhere else. I don't know why our brains are designed that way, it's, like, really messed up, but you gotta just say yes to the moment.
Amen. I think it's so much like there's no wasted season ever. There's no wasted season, and we are not waiting. We're not wasting today waiting for tomorrow. It's the age old saying of can't wait. Like we are so excited for good reason on what's to come, but don't, lose sight of what God has called you to in the present. Like you said, like there could be a person next to you in this season. Maybe it's in the locker room with you. Maybe it's in the class with you. Maybe it's on a team with you. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's the person in the cubicle next to you. Like who
Yeah,
knows what that you are called to impact in this season. Even if it's the worst season of your life, even if you're at that job for 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 days,
yeah.
like maybe you are called to impact these people or the people around you, or maybe you're gaining something from this season. I've heard Pastor Stephen Furtick before preach a sermon, and it's the God of again. And if you know my story, that's like actually one of the biggest sermons that's most impactful on my life. And my 2024 year, I talk about it going into 2024 last year. But he talks so much about how it's like, man, sometimes you're just in the season and you're like, God, like I'm ready for the next one. And like, come on, God, like I'm waiting, I'm waiting. And God's like, oh no, I'm waiting on you. Like, when are you going to learn the lesson I'm trying to teach you in this season? You haven't learned it yet. So, honey, nope, you're sitting your butt in this season. So you learn that lesson. And I think, and it goes back, he was telling it goes back to almost your yes and amen, that you have to connect with God. You have to align with God and say yes and amen to him. And maybe that's, yep, God, I'm just going to sit here and wait, and I'm going to wait on you. And I don't know what I'm waiting for, but you told me to wait. So here I am. Or maybe it is witnessing, and maybe it's actively doing something. Maybe it's learning something. Maybe it's ditching a frog in your own life. Who knows what it might be? But God is calling us to align with him in every single season, no matter what it looks like, and to play where our feet are. But that's not always easy, Julie. We know that firsthand. It's not always easy. And like you said, with Ditch the Frogs and yourself, I have this brand because it's hard for me. It's hard for me to play where my feet are. And so that's why I have to do this. So I got to ask you, for those that are listening to this and inspired by you, as everyone is, what's your advice now for those that are wanting to play where their feet are, but maybe aren't sure where to start?
Absolutely. Okay. I think everybody who is like, how the heck do I play where my feet are? You honestly have to commit and say yes to the season that you're in. Like, stop detesting it, stop resenting it, stop like wishing it away, because I promise after I've gone through every season, I've always looked back and been like, I could have done that a little bit differently, or I could have been a little bit more present. So I think that the first step to do, if you're like, how the heck do I play where my feet are, is reframe your mind. You have to get your mind right. Whether that's opening scripture, praying, calling a friend, sitting in silence with God, like turning off the AirPods. I don't know what it is. You have to mentally commit. If you're going to take this seriously, you have to mentally commit. And once you do that, you every day, every minute, every second, remind yourself, be present, be present. Like you said, you never know if you're at that job to impact that person's life. You don't always get to see it. We don't always get to see God's hand work in everything, though it is working in everything. And it's so funny that you asked this question, because I have been so internally anxious today. And yesterday, I literally had a mentee B, guys. Yesterday, like I'm talking crying. I'm going on around and I'm like, God, like this is a lot right now. And God has me in a season right now of uncertainty. I always like to say the only certainties in life are uncertainty and death. That is truly the only certainties. And God is quite, and I hate that. Like, I literally can't stand uncertainty and not having control. Like, we as women know that, like, from the fall, from Eve, like, one of the things that we struggle with is control. We see it in controlling relationships, controlling motherhood, like anything. We can't stand the uncertainty. I can't stand the uncertainty. It's something I have to work on. I don't know where I'm going to be living next month. Um, I don't know where my job's gonna be, because I'm interviewing right now and it's getting very serious. And I'm just like, I prayed for this all year and I'm like, whoa, God, like now that I'm playing in this season, I'm like, whoa, am I ready? Like, it's really interesting. And then I'm also single and I'm like, what the heck are you gonna do here? And that's uncertain. I don't know. I would love to know who the heck my spouse is and where my career is going and how I'm gonna settle down and do my life. And God's like, ha ha ha, get your popcorn out, sis. Like, we're doing some crazy things here. And I've been so anxious about it, but I've been so excited about it. For me, the feelings are the same. And it's a massive question mark. Like, I might be moving for this job that I'm interviewing for right now. I know this is coming out in February, but I'm like so interested to see, like, by the time this comes out, like, where the heck am I?
As we kind of wrap up everything and maybe plan further the amount of topics we could touch on in other episodes or on your podcast as well, where can we go for all the info on everything? What is the Instagram? What's the website? How do we actually buy the items? Where can we find you, the pod, and all the things?
Absolutely. So it's super simple, guys. Everything, every handle is Ditch the Frogs. So an S. It's not
Love
Ditch the
that.
Frog, Ditch the Frogs, plural. So the Instagram is Ditch the Frogs, TikTok Ditch the Frogs. I have an Etsy page. That's just Ditch the Frogs, and then a website that's ditchthefrogs.com. And that's where you can find me. If you want to start DMing me some dating questions you have, I'm all ears. And yeah, I guess that's all my socials.
Send in the audio messages.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cue the audio messages. We're going for it. I love it. I love it. Well, Julie, this has been such a treat for me, for the podcast, for the Play Where You Feed Our Family. We're so honored to have you. We're honored that we are your first ever podcast. You're a guest on. And I know that seriously, this is the first of many. Like, I see so much within you, so much with this brand. This is not only a, quote unquote, maybe trending and hot topic or popular topic of dating, but it's necessary. Like you said, like, you can't emphasize enough that if you are going into a relationship, we should be going into it with a purpose. We are dating to marry, and marrying is finding the ministry partner, and it is building the family, and it is helping the world, like you said, and pointing people to Jesus. And so this is important. It is needed. I'm excited to see your voice and your face leading the charge here. And I cannot wait to see what's to come. And like I said, hey, if I ever get engaged one day, I know who I'm calling to help do one theme night of my bachelorette party. That's for sure. Ditch the
Oh,
Frogs will be present.
getting a free one. So heck
Hey, let's
yeah.
go. I'll take all the content for you. I promise. I
Okay,
got you.
perfect.
I
Love
got
it.
you. I'll do a photo shoot. We'll do the video. You'll have your next commercial. You're good to go.
Oh,
Um,
let's
but
go.
Julie, I love it. I seriously, I'm so excited. Thank you for saying yes and amen to the call that God has had on your life. I'm forever in your corner, forever cheering you on, forever encouraging you, and you are forever part of the PWYFA Play Where You Feed Our Family. So thank you, girlie, for coming on. And I got to give the last final gold nugget moment to you. So any final gold nuggets you got, any mic drop moments, or if nothing else, like your go-to coffee order. What do you have for us?
Okay, heck yeah. Okay, well, first of all, Cameron, thank you so much for the time tonight. I know you're so busy, so the fact that you wanted to hear me talk about, I know I sent you the video before about frogs.
Yeah, frogs.
It means so much to me, and you are so special. Keep it on. Like, you are truly phenomenal. I'm so honored to know you. Shout out Maya May for letting us meet. Seriously, thank you. My go-to coffee order is I'm making coffee at home now. I don't know. I used to be like a going out and like getting coffee girly, and I still am, but I'm like really into my Keurig era, so I'm really boring, guys. Sorry. But the last piece of advice, or I guess, you know what? It's not advice, it's my question for you, Cameron, that I didn't ask you yet.
Okay.
Okay. So you mentioned that you're dating someone that you really like. Can I ask you why you think he may be a prince and not a frog? What are the
Yeah.
qualities that you're seeing of princeliness?
Oh my goodness. So many fantastic qualities. He will be on the pod in season 4. So you guys will meet him. Maybe you've already met him at this point. Who knows? But Mr. Eli Castillo, he is absolutely incredible. And our story, which you'll hear in the podcast that he will be on, is quite incredible. But it has started from very much friends to friend zoned to all of a sudden, literally out of nowhere, him coming back into my life and making a move, and the rest is history. And so there's a lot within there that, not that, again, talking about how frogs aren't necessarily bad, how
Yes.
originally I saw him as a frog. Originally I was not interested in him. Originally I did friend zone him. But I think that God was so intentional in that, because he did a lot of work in Eli's life, and he did a lot of work in my life that needed to be done in the year that we were apart. And just to see, honestly, I think he's a guy that I forever see myself with, in the sense of he's so fun, he's the life of the party, he's all this, that, and the other. But then also he is so incredibly mature. And for me, I think the biggest thing that stands out is that he's not just a cheerleader for me. And he
Mm.
is, don't get me wrong, he has said things that have spoken so much life into me and to Play Where Your Feet Are and to the ministry and the calling God has on my life. But he's also not going to agree with everything I'm going for. and he will challenge me like no other. And he will challenge me in the silly, goofy ways and get under my skin like no other. But he'll also challenge me in very serious ways. And one quick little story that I'll say is that when I was actually making the church transition from my last church to my new church, VU, my last church was forever incredible, continues to be incredible. It is still some church that I would advocate for anyone to go to in Miami. It was just very seasonal for me. And so it served me for nearly 7 years. And now I'm on a new season. So it's like that's always going to be my home church. Like Atlanta will always be my home. But right now I live in Fort Lauderdale. I live in Miami. I've moved on to a new season, though I always still love that. So nothing bad at all against Metro. But I remember I was kind of double dipping still between Metro and between VU and going back and forth. And I was texting him because they opened a new campus and I was so excited and I was back with all my old friends and all this stuff and like saying how I was going to double dip and go to the 11 service here and then the 6 p.m. service there and like just so excited how I could kind of balance both and all these things. And he's like, okay. Now, keep in mind the conversation is about going to church more. That's what we're talking about is going to church more. And he's like, okay, but look at your life and your schedule now and how spread thin you are. Is this the right decision you're making to spread yourself even more thin? To not only do that, but kind of spread your communities more thin. I think it would be really smart to get plugged into somewhere and give your all to that. We're also pursuing a relationship together, and I'd like for us to be plugged in at the same spot, being poured in by the same people. And he just comes at me, not aggressively at all. He sent a beautiful message, but just kind of really presented these points and facts in a loving and caring way that understood where I was coming from. And he said that. He was like, I know these are people that you love. I know this is a community that's built you, but let's look at what this might mean if you go down this route. And he almost put the decision back in my hands where I was like, dang it, you're right. Dang it, I've met my match. And it's so true. Like it has been someone that has just challenged me time after time, day after day. He is so theologically strong. He literally went to Bible school. And so I tell him it's almost like the first relationship I feel like I've been in where I'm convicted that I need to know more. And I'm like, his faith inspires my faith. Like you said, almost that fear. But it's like I it's a burden because I'm like, oh, we're going to battle for God. And we've had
Iron
many
sharpens iron.
Yes, and we've had many circumstances since to where we're literally leading in ministry together and immediately after experience a spiritual attack. Because
Yeah.
we know there's power in our relationship, no matter what comes out of this. We're not engaged yet, not sure what's to come. We love each other, all the things, and you're going to hear more about that in the podcast. But there's a call in our lives to serve God. And if our union together does that, the devil's going to be after it. And so we've seen different things that's confirmation from God and also attacks from the devil that inspires us to move forward. But all in all, I'll say that the biggest, I think, thing for me is that he challenges me. He's not just my cheerleader. He's not just going to say, yes, Cam, go Cam, do whatever. Yes, Cam, do all the things, do whatever you want. This is all good. You're killing it. Go Queen. Like, no, he's a man that's going to lead me, that's not going to let an independent woman lead herself, and will step in when he can. And so, no, he's incredible things. You'll hear a lot more about him. But he stands out from the others, that's for sure.
So he's challenging in a good way where he calls you higher and also factually looks at your life and your heart. And then he's also like a leader.
Yeah. And
World,
he can
we
do
need
it.
leaders.
Girl, we could go on a whole nother podcast episode, but this is important to say. But he literally will do. We were talking to someone else. Someone else was asking us relationship advice about a legit something they were in the other day, and I was shouting him out because he does all of that at a totally, I'm going to say it wrong, objective perspective. Like he is pulling himself out of the situation. One
Yes.
example, because this is extremely important. Obviously, we are pursuing purity in our relationship. We
Yeah.
are pursuing purity. It's extremely important. I'm a virgin. He's a virgin. We're committed to this. And we are very, very on it with our boundaries. Are we perfect? No, but we're on it. And we have a lot of serious conversations about it and how we handle it. And let me tell you, we struggled a little bit at a certain time. And I told him, I was like, I don't trust myself right now. I feel like we need like stricter boundaries or something. Like, I just need more confidence in us that we can obey these boundaries. We can obey God in these boundaries. And granted, our boundaries are boundaries keeping us far away from doing the deed. So like we are protecting ourselves, but we
Yeah.
didn't even want to fall in those boundaries. And so I was like, I don't know, like I just feel like maybe this sounds dramatic to the world, which it will, but I was like,
Yes.
I just don't think we should kiss at all for like the next month. Like nothing at all, like no physical contact whatsoever. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm in. And then so we did it and it was great and it was fantastic. We had the most intentional month and it was absolutely incredible. I recommend literally everyone doing it. So we did it. We went a while and then like literally 3 days after we finished, I was like, I kind of feel like we should do it again. And he was like, I actually already prayed about this and I was going to text you today that we're doing it. I've already decided. Like, let's go another 21 more days. And so, again, speaking this in the world of hookup culture, and you said the initials or whatever of all of it,
Yeah.
like we went
Yeah.
nearly 50 days without any physical contact. And that is a man of God and that is a prince and not a frog. He pulls his own fleshly desires, own selfish ambition out of the picture. He does whatever is good for God, whatever is good for you, because that's going to be good for him at the end of the day. And we went for it and it was great and it was amazing. And we still do it occasionally. Like it's fantastic. And yeah, you'll hear more about him and he'll speak from his side too. But that's a prince, that's not a frog.
Mic drop. Guys, anyone listening, I hope that your jaw's on the floor of like your strength and your boyfriend's strength. Like, you guys are truly like truly sanctifying each other. Like the way that you are doing that, and he's still here and
Yeah.
he's still after your heart. Like, guys, that's what we all want. That is what we all want. We want to be totally seen, totally known, totally cherished, totally captivated by the man without the physical stuff, like before marriage, right? Like that is Cameron, you're an amazing example. I'm so proud of you. And just thank you for sharing that. And like that's what I want to leave girls with and guys with is know your true worth. Know whose you are and that will carry you through. You do not need to settle for the toxic dating culture that undermines your worth and your identity. Wait well. Wait well for the prince because you've waited so well. So well. And God is quite literally blessing you. And also, guys, it's so easy to get wrapped up in like, well, what if like God doesn't have a spouse for me? If that desire is totally written on your heart and it comes in like year after year after year, I promise, guys, don't give up on God. He's working. But if it's not, all of our bridegrooms is the Lord, is Jesus. So even if you never find your earthly one, you do have him and he's the eternal one. So like you do have your spouse, but like I promise don't lose hope. It's always worth the wait. I promise. And I needed to hear that
Yeah.
too.
And at the end of the day, your satisfaction will never come from your spouse. And so why not in the waiting be fully satisfied in God? That's the point to where I got literally to the point where I said this on the 2024 podcast going into this year. Like if you are a listener of the pod, you know I was like I'm so excited to be single all year. I cannot wait to see what God's going to do for the first time ever. I feel like I am fully content in being single, not right now, not in this season, but forever. That if I'm never a wife or a mom, I'm chilling, I'm good. And then the next day, after I recorded that podcast, Eli made a move. God is funny.
God, what are you doing?
God
I
is funny.
love it. I love it.
So more on that to come. But Julie, yeah, we got to get you back on the pod already because we can go on and on and on. But I will wrap it here because it's been so good already. The last thing I'll say is that Pastor Jonathan Pekluda, he speaks a lot on dating. He's an incredible pastor based in Texas. And he has always said, don't lower your standards, lengthen your patience. And I think you just hit it on the head there too. Don't lower your standards, lengthen your patience. If
Amen.
it's for you, it will come to you. God has it for you. He's preparing it for you. And it'll come. So don't lower your standards, lengthen your patience. Julie, thank you for being an incredible woman of God, for being an example of ditching the frogs and playing where your feet are, and of course, hopping on the pod today. We love you so, so much.
Oh my gosh, my cheeks, I told you this in the beginning, are gonna hurt by the end of this. They are hurting in the best way ever.
Oh,
Cameron, thank you so much for your time, for playing where your feet are. Everyone listening, thank you for your time, and I'm just so grateful to be here. Yep.
we love you so much. Thanks, Julie.
Love you. Bye.
Oh my goodness, how much fun was Julie? To be honest, y'all, I didn't think this podcast episode would be that long, but we just went in, I feel like, towards the end of that too. And that was so good, so joyful, and I feel like I needed that too. So I hope you guys needed that too. But Julie is incredible. Like we said, all of the handles, the Instagrams, the social medias, the website, they're all linked below. So you can rep this hat just like me. And you can check out all the Play Where Your Feet Are merch while you're at it. Because all of our Play Where Your Feet Are links are also down below. We love you guys so much though. We want to make sure you're staying in tune with all things PWYFA. So whether it is the podcast, whether it's the audiobooks, whether it's the merchandise, the books, the camps, the playdates, the retreats, all the things that we have going on, make sure to follow us online as well. We love you guys though. Till next time, be blessed and play where your feet are.